everybody, welcome to Avanico Technologies. In the previous video, we saw how to minimize the company's expenses using budget allocation. In today's video, we're going to see about how to track and record our costing using the dimensions, distribution rule and cost centers. Let's get into the topic. In the cost accounting, the first step is the general settings option. So that has to be inside the administration, system initialization and general settings. So here you have a tab called cost accounting. So this has to be enabled. And at the most, there are 5 dimensions in every company. So you can decide whether this 5 dimensions should be in the same column or in different columns. So I've given in separate column here, for example. And next comes the block required for these 3 dimensions. So here in the sample OEC computer database, the 3 dimensions have been defined, namely the departments, line of business, and region. So the action is I'm giving block posting, block posting, block posting, which means if there is no dimensions mentioned in these no distribution rules mentioned in these 3 dimensions, then automatically the entry will not get saved. It will be blocked. So I'm just giving update here. If there is any default series or default GL account for this cost accounting, you can give it here, else you can leave it blank. So now after making these changes, I'm adding this, I'm updating this general settings. Okay. So next comes my chart of accounts option. So under the financials in the chart of accounts, you have to display, you have to specify for which accounts the distribution rules are going to be mandatory. Say for example, if I'm taking an account called salary, wages, basic, then I can just select which is going to be the mandatory distribution rule here. So if I'm just selecting the distribution rule called department, then whenever I'm using this ledger called salary, wages, basic, then I have to select the departments for sure, else it will not allow me to add the data because in the general settings we have enabled that option block posting. So similarly, I can just select whatever the data I want. So say for example, for salaries and wages, I've given the departments line of business is mandatory. Whereas in the casual wages, I've defined the region as mandatory. So it is completely with referral to the company's requirement. So these data can be enabled. But these options will come in chart of accounts only when we define the dimensions under the cost setting. So in the cost accounting, you can see that dimensions must be given. So as I already told you, there are 3 dimensions have been active: departments, line of business, and region. There is only 2 more left in this OEC computer database. So these 3 dimensions were only specified in the chart of accounts. So the next step is creation of cost centers or distribution rule. So when you create a cost center, say for example, you can there are 3 dimensions called departments, line of business, and region. So I'm taking the region. So I'm creating a cost center called 1001. In the name south, and the dimension I'm supposed to give it as region. And from today's date I can give, by default today's date will be brought and it is active. So whenever you create a cost center, it automatically gets added in the distribution rule. But distribution rule is slightly different from cost center, whereas the club of all the I mean the clubs of the cost center will be the distribution rule. Say for example, the recently created cost center called south has been displayed in your distribution rule as direct allocation for 100% total. Say, for example, if I'm going to give the distribution rule, I'm creating a new cost center called 1002 and then giving east, and in the region I'm adding it. Now, my distribution rule consists of 1003 with the starting from effective from today. So this is going to be the club of south and east, which means in the dimensions I have to select region, and here I can select the cost center code. So one is going to be 1001, another one is going to be 1002. So now I can allocate the data. It is not direct allocation, it is indirect allocation. I can allocate the data 60% to south and then 40% to east. So total it will add up to 100. So that is how the allocation works. So now I can give add, which means the distribution rule 103 has been added. So whenever I'm using the distribution rule or cost center 103 in my ledgers, then the 60% will go to the south and the 40% will go to the east. So 1003 was a recently created distribution rule. So you can see that 60% will go to the south, 40% will go to the east. So these are the basic setups of the cost accounting. So first is enabling the cost accounting in the general settings. Second step is creating the dimensions. Third step is enabling the dimensions in the chart of account. Fourth step is creation of cost centers and distribution rule. So whenever I'm adding a data or whenever I'm putting a manual journal, be it any data or manual journal entry or AP invoice or be it any marketing document, whenever I'm selecting the salary and wages basic account, then it will mandatorily ask me to enter the data. If not, the particular document will not be added. Thank you.